Good day. I'm Martin Gago with Market Radius Research. It's Wednesday, March the 2nd. And today we've got CEO Giasson and COO Colin Bletsky of MustGrow joining us. MustGrow is an agricultural biotech company providing patented and natural science-based plant protection solutions for the agricultural industry. I'm very happy to have MustGrow back. We first talked with them on this platform back in May. And as we all know, over just the past 6 months, the company has announced a lot of very significant news. And we're all very much looking forward to getting an update and details on the progress of MustGrow's numerous initiatives. Corey and Colin will be giving a brief overview, and then we will get right into answering the audience questions. But please remember, this is neither a recommendation nor investment advice. We are here to learn about the company. Corey, Colin, thank you very much for joining us, and take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. It's a pleasure to be here today to present to you guys MustGrow. I know many of the people that are joining us are probably shareholders, but there might be a few newcomers to the company. So this presentation will be an update mostly, but we will be going over a little bit about MustGrow and what we're doing. So you might have heard of some of this in the past. Draw your attention to our forward-looking statement disclaimer. There is forward-looking statements that we are going to make that potentially could differ from actual results. This disclaimer can be read in detail on our website at mustgrow.ca. About our company, as Martin mentioned at the start, we're an ag biotech company. We're based in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, and we have a patented technology that is a natural organic technology platform that extracts compounds from the mustard seed. And these compounds can be highly efficacious in controlling microbial diseases, insect pests, and weeds. We're a public company listed on the CSE and OTC and also Frankfurt Exchange. The technology that we have patented has great potential to be a sustainable innovation that could be disruptive within the agriculture industry to potentially replace synthetic chemicals, both ones that have been banned and ones that are being potentially used on the market here today. As I mentioned, we extract compounds from the mustard seed. So we have two extracts, one being AITC, allyl isothiocyanate. Now that's for the diseases and the pests. And then our most recent extract is thiocyanate, would be for the herbicidal control for weeds, to treat weeds and that. But they're both derived from food grade mustard that is grown in southern Saskatchewan and southern Alberta. There's great potential for positive soil health and ecological impacts, specifically from the AITC. There is literature out there that shows that. And as I mentioned, we own our patents, 100% of them, minus one patent that we've licensed from the University of Idaho, and that's for potato sprout control. There's been a lot of work completed to date, over 110 independent studies with reputable companies such as Pacific Ag in the US, and some of the global partners that you see there on the left of this slide are starting to do more and more work in fields which we've announced. I think the neat thing about our company, other than the technology, which is very interesting, but the neat thing is that we've got a very tight capital structure. 47 million shares outstanding, 54 million fully diluted. About 18% of our basic shares are insider owned. But I see once we have a registered product with the $9 million of cash on hand, there's a good chance that we'll maintain a very tight capital structure going forward through utilizing toll manufacturers to obtain initial production once we have a registered product. Our achievements over the last 6 months, it's been a busy 6 months. In August, we announced a partnership with Sumitomo Corporation in the Americas across, basically our whole product pipeline. We closed $7 million private placement in October, and we announced successful field trials in Colombia on the Fusarium wilt TR4 affecting bananas. In November, we also announced that this banana trial program will be transitioning to Sumitomo Corporation, not only in Colombia, but in other areas as well. In December, we announced successful initial field trial results with Sumitomo in the US on cotton, soybeans, and cucurbits. And in addition, we announced that we're going to be expanding with Sumitomo into other countries in Central and South America. In January, we announced an exclusive partnership with Bayer in Europe, Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa. And that basically has taken our company to be global. And our most recent announcement in February was our first foray into the post-harvest studies. We had successful results on potatoes, treating disease, Fusarium dry rot, and also sprout suppression. So one application for multiple treatments for disease and sprout, which is there currently is no product in the market that can do that. So we are very excited about that. But in all, through our partnerships, we've expanded our global capabilities, period, in R&D, regulatory, and potentially commercialization throughout our technology platform. We're doing stuff with these companies in other areas of the world that we never thought we'd be able to get to at this point. So we're quite excited.
So yeah, when you look at the partnerships and what they all entail, we have three, and as Corey mentioned, the three key ones, he talked about two of them. The first one that we signed a while ago was with NexusBioAg. And this is really focused in the Canadian market, Western Canadian market, looking at two key diseases in canola and pulse crops. To give you some context, canola is roughly about a 20 million acre crop. It is the breadbasket of Western Canada. And a disease called clubroot is spreading extremely rapidly with no chemical control. The same thing with the Phenomyces. It's roughly targeting mostly peas and some lentils. That's around 10 million acres in Western Canada. And we have seen some stats that over 90% of these crops are infected with the Phenomyces. Once again, no real chemical control, no genetics. So it offered a tremendous amount of opportunity. We are working with NexusBioAg, working on field trials and looking at the market and how we can develop with that market and our technology as we had previous success. And this is something that we're really excited about, still working with Nexus and driving that Canadian market. And it is extremely important and very important to the Western Canadian growers. So really excited to work with Nexus, and they do have a very good scope on field testing, on people in sales, marketing, right across the entire Western Canadian market. The next company was Sumitomo Corporation, and if you look at the websites and you look at who Sumitomo is, they are well over a $40 billion global organization who is partnering with us. And we're really excited about working with Sumitomo. They're driving all of our field development work and funding it to all of our development work, looking for ways to get us to commercialization right across the Americas. And this scope and this agreement with them covers all the exclusive field testing in our pre-plant soil product, our bioherbicide, as well as the post-harvest business, but only specifically the potatoes and bananas. So it excludes the other parts of post-harvest. It excludes turf and ornamentals. It excludes the home and garden segment, and it also excludes the floriculture industry. So it still leaves other areas to look at other partnerships and look at other opportunities. So really excited to work with Sumitomo, and I have to say they've been very good to work with. We've seen some very good results so far, and with the success we've had, they are now rapidly moving into many parts of the world and the Americas that we only had plans on and didn't have the capabilities to do so. Working with them now, we have that capability and moving that forward. Bayer and BioAg, once again, another over $40 billion organization. And if you look at their focus right now and their global focus, both organizations on sustainability and looking for new actives, we're also very excited to work with Bayer, looking at how we can now expand to Europe, Asia, Middle East, Africa. And to give you some context, 56% of the world's food supply is driven by those regions of the world. A big portion of the ag chem market is driven by these portions of the world. A lot of the chemical deregulations and chemical bans are coming and starting out of the European Union and moving out towards the other parts of the world. So working with Bayer, who has a tremendous amount of expertise, a tremendous amount of people and knowledge in the agriculture segment is extremely important. So, based on that agreement, what we signed with them is, again, an exclusive field trial program where they're funding and doing all the development work, looking at the pre-plant soil fumigation across every single crop that there is, looking at the bioherbicide application in those areas and post-harvest, but their post-harvest business is only specifically looking at the potatoes. And so this does give us some other areas around the world to look for other partners. But, we're excited as MustGrow. I'm excited, coming here. I was excited with this technology, but now we're seeing the excitement come in from external partners and seeing success in field with these partners. is driving more success, it's driving more expansion, and it's driving more excitement. So really happy to have 3 key partners on board and working with all of them to help us expand across the globe.
Colin, I'm curious, Sumitomo Corp and Bayer, they're doing much of the same work, but in different regions. Are they at all working together, sharing some data and kind of helping each other out? Or is it really just the lines of communication are you and Sumitomo, you and Bayer?
Yeah, and Martin, that's a great question. And I believe it was one of the questions that came up as well. In the global ag industry, all these companies work together in some form or fashion, but with our specific agreements, all the data, everything that's generated is still owned by MustGrow. We are still the owners of the technology. We're the owners of the knowledge. So we are the means of communication. Now we're taking key areas of knowledge and understanding from different partners from our previous experience in field. We're helping Sumitomo be some more successful in field. We're utilizing that knowledge and helping Bayer as well to move forward in their trials. So we can't put the 2 organizations together, and if they want to talk, that's out of our scope to, they can talk on their own. We are trying to enable them to be successful and make sure they understand how to utilize our technology. So all the learnings, all the data, everything that we've had in the past, we're able to work with the new party and help them succeed. So and I know it's not a direct answer, but they may be talking, I don't know, that's out of my scope, but for us, we're the ones who facilitate our technologies and our data and our understanding with both organizations.
So if you gain knowledge or information from one group, and they get some movement ahead on some aspect of it, you'll share that with the other one.
Definitely, and just the one key thing though is as long as it's not proprietary to one of the organizations, if they're using a proprietary treatment or combination or something, we can't share that. But if it's specifically around MustGrow, if it's about how our product is mixed and how we should apply it and what dose rating we should use, definitely we're sharing that to be, help streamline and make the other organization more successful. So it's a give and take, and it's been very successful so far in helping people move forward. And I give you a good example. You always see potentially some negative aspects or not, maybe things not work in the field, and you learn. And we've been able to share a lot of those learnings with Sumitomo, and we've had some very good results, which we've announced. Without having our earlier learnings and sharing that, it would have been taking them a bit more time and trial and error. So we definitely share those learnings and try help them be as successful as possible.
Thanks.
Yeah, so what you see here is the market drivers, and this is why we're doing what we're doing. We're getting pulled into this market because regulatory agencies and consumers, they're demanding a safer food supply. Regulatory agencies are banning harmful synthetic chemicals, and that's leaving little alternatives for producers. Producers, they want to maximize their yields to help feed a growing population. And if some of the tools that they've been used in the past, such as some of the synthetic chemicals that they've been using, if they're removed, how are they going to grow a crop? And what we're providing is a solution to that, a natural organic technology, a platform technology that can be used in a variety of different markets globally, and that just happens to have the efficacy of synthetic chemicals. So farmers, they want to use something that works. So this, we feel, has a great opportunity to help replace some of the chemicals that are being removed from the market.
So when you look at our technology, and we focus this over 3 key areas: a pre-plant soil biofumigation market. So this market is, roughly about just under $1 billion market globally and growing, but this is dominated by synthetic chemicals that are very toxic. Our bioherbicide. So if you think of bioherbicide, we're looking to potentially complement or replace some of the chemistries used today. Start thinking of Roundup. If you look at it, we're partnered with Bayer, but they've just done a $10 billion write-down of that business and looking at that area. If you look at the challenges and global challenges of glyphosate now being starting to get banned in certain countries, it's an important chemistry. We need to find different solutions. So looking at that marketplace, not only glyphosate, but other non-selective herbicides. And then post-harvest food preservation, this is more looking at the sprout control. So ensuring root and tuber veggies, so potatoes, making sure that they don't sprout in storage and they're still being able to be consumed. Or looking at other areas of disease, insect, and even down a way of storage, shipping, and even down into foodborne pathogen control and mycotoxins. So when you look at our technology, and this is something people ask me, who are your competitors? And, I have 30 years of experience in this industry. I worked for chemical corporations. I worked for a biological organization. I still actively farm. Who are my competitors right now? I would say our competitors are the big ag chem companies and the chemistries. They're not really the biological products that are on the marketplace. The living organisms have a fit. If you think of Bacillus, Trichoderma, Bovaria, Metarhizium, they are safe products that have a fit, but they're not as effective as synthetic chemicals. Synthetic chemicals are extremely effective. They're consistent. They're accurate, easy to use, but in most cases they're quite harmful. Our technology is coming from food grade mustard. It's the same active. When you eat wasabi and you feel the burn in your nose, it's the same active that we're taking from mustard and we're putting back in a soil, which is safe but extremely effective. We have trials now showing that we potentially can compete head to head with chemistries, synthetic chemistries, in a lot of the key markets for us. So this is why I believe that we're extremely unique. We have a great opportunity with our technology, and gets me excited. So when you look at what we have a product that's efficient, it's flexible, because we're trying to make our product be able to be used in any of the ways growers have used their products today. We don't want the farmer to have to change what they're doing. It's safe. And, I go back, if you look at the pre-plant soil biofumigation industry, some of the highest rates of testicular cancer are in field pickers where chemistries have been used. And this is something, when you're thinking about us putting a natural product in and replacing those chemistries, it's extremely important on a financial side, but also on a social side. Our product's organic, so we're not only looking at the conventional markets, but we also now can look at organic acres where those growers don't really have any solutions. And that marketplace continues to grow globally. It's efficient, and then it's economical. And this is something where we believe we can go potentially head to head versus chemistries and still have a fairly good gross margin on the back end. So when we look at it, we're really excited. And leading into our pipeline, this is something where we've done a lot of work. And I would say I'm very proud of, I know Corey is, and our CFO, Todd, we're very proud of what we've done over the past 18 months and 2 years, and rapidly in the last 6 months. But we've really expanded our pipeline to be just from a one product company to a company that now has the ability to make multiple products into going into multiple markets. And now with our partners, we have the ability now to go right across the globe. And that's something we're looking for. So when you look at our pipeline, it's back to those 3 key areas: the soil biofumigation market, so the pre-plant, looking across all crops. And at this part in our time, we're now in process with the EPA and in combination with Sumitomo, looking and moving through those government regulations. We're now moving this product and this pipeline into other parts of the world. We've mentioned Sumitomo is going to be starting work in Mexico, in Peru, looking at Chile. We are now looking with Bayer in other parts of the world, when some of the essentially all other 3 continents we're going to be moving into in the near future. So it's a big market for us and a huge market opportunity. And this is a market, just to reiterate, is dominated by synthetic chemicals that either have been banned already in Europe and other parts of the world, but are still being used in the US. So it gives us a tremendous amount of opportunity in that market in the US today. The other 3 areas, bananas, canola, and pulse crops, we're looking at targeting key diseases that there are no synthetic chemical control for today and are causing tremendous amounts of damage. And I talked about canola and pulse crops a bit, but I'll talk about bananas and Fusarium wilt TR4. This disease has been around, the first generation of this disease has been around since the 1950s. It's already wiped out one entire monoculture of bananas called the Gros Michel. And essentially since then has done well over $18 billion of damage. This is a $25 billion industry. It's one of the #1 fruits globally consumed. It employs well over 2 million people a year. And if you look at some of the economies where bananas are grown, it's a key part of their GDP. There's no chemical control. What we did is we did work in Colombia. We did lab work. We had success on controlling this disease. We moved it to field. We had success reducing the incidence, the severity, and actually reducing the CFU in the soil. What we're doing now and what we're excited about is transitioning that to Sumitomo with their technical knowledge, their teams, and really driving that program and looking at expanding that program, not only in Colombia, but also into other parts like Ecuador, even in Costa Rica, to see how we can have an impact, not only looking at Fusarium wilt TR4, but other things that happen and have an impact on bananas. So we're really happy about what we've done there. Clubroot and Aphanomyces, like I talked about this with NexusBioAg, they're working and we're moving into these trials and working through these trials. We had success showing control of both Aphanomyces and Clubroot in lab and greenhouse, and that's moved into field, and we're waiting on that data with Nexus and seeing the next steps going into next year about how do we continue to learn and move this product forward into the Canadian market. Bioherbicide, and this is where I said we're not just a one product company now. We do have another active ingredient essentially with thiocyanate. Gives us a tremendous amount of opportunity, and we've shown some good efficacy. And now working with both Sumitomo in the Americas and Bayer, one of the leading herbicidal companies globally in the rest of the world, we're hopeful that this product and this program can move forward quite rapidly with them once they get their understanding and learning and knowledge. The last area is on the post-harvest food preservation. And the first area is both on potato sprouting and disease control. And this is what we just announced, having success, being able to control sprouts better than the leading chemistry, having the ability to control the disease, dry rot, better than the chemistry as well. We're going to continue to expand this program and working both with Sumitomo in the Americas and eventually Bayer once they transition and move forward in Europe, Asia, Africa, looking at this program as well and expanding it. The other three key areas, the last one, so looking at grains, looking at toxins and other pests in grain, looking at diseases and looking at foodborne pathogens. Literature shows AITC works. It's all about application and timing. And this is where we have an opportunity to look at other partners who have experience in these markets to really help us move this forward and try to understand our technology even further.
So our work plan for 2022, well, just like in 2021, we're going to continue to define the path to commercialization with multiple applications and markets globally. We're very excited with the partners that we have that are going to be doing the field trials globally, the regulatory work in multiple applications in multiple different regions, and then starting to accelerate the post-harvest side, just like Colin just mentioned. We want to continue to push that technology pipeline forward to commercialization. We also are going to be assessing further partnerships on the lower part of that pipeline, specifically around the post-harvest stuff that hasn't currently been signed. Again, our objective is to get our technology used in as many markets and many applications globally as possible. We're going to continue to do formulation optimization. We think that's a good shareholder value if we can reduce costs and have some product enhancements with our current technology. And we are going to define the path to commercialization. Once we do have a registered product, how are we going to produce it? Potentially through toll manufacturing initially. How are we going to get it into the market and distribute that product? That's all going to be defined hopefully this year. And through toll manufacturing, we see a very tight capital structure remaining for this company. 54 million shares fully diluted. We're fortunate to be sitting on $9 million of cash on hand, which is enough capital based on our current burn for the next 4 to 5 years. We're in a very good position to get our initial registration and potentially through toll manufacturing, get initial production and revenue for this company. It's going to be exciting 2022 and we're looking forward to it. So thank you, everybody. I know we've got a list of questions. We hope to be able to answer them all here right now. If there's more than we can answer, you can see our contact information here at MustGrow or Colin or myself personally. We'd be happy to take any questions anytime, but I look forward to our question and answer session right now. Thank you.
All right, Corey and Colin, thank you very much. Got the questions printed out here, so we'll get going, and then we're already stacking up some on the Zoom Q&A thing. So let's start off with the EPA. How much did COVID slow down the Terra MG EPA approval?
Yeah, well, I mean, COVID, I believe COVID slowed down a lot of different stuff around the world. We feel that it has also affected, slowed down the EPA as well. I will say though that the EPA and it's not in our control. We're focusing in here now, working with Sumitomo and the EPA to drive this registration forward. We're excited that Sumitomo Corporation is involved, the registration will happen when it happens. For us to focus on things that we can control, such as field trials, expanding globally with our partners, and continuing to push our technology forward to commercialization, we think that that's good value, and it's stuff that we can control and make sure gets done. It's stuff that needs to be done, and we're very hopeful of obtaining an EPA approval in the future here.
Is it reasonable to expect that the EPA approval could happen in 2022, or is that more likely beyond 2022? Just very broad.
I guess the thing is, we've tried to guess of when we potentially could receive it in the past and have been wrong.
Okay.
I'd hate to be wrong twice.
Right.
We're very happy with how everything is progressing with the EPA. And again, we didn't get the registration when we were hoping to have it, but we're excited about continuing to push the EPA approval along, and we're excited about the work that we've done to be able to expand our technology pipeline and start working in markets that we never thought we'd be in at this stage.
With the EPA approval, does it just target certain plants or certain crops, or once it's approved, you can maybe it's approved for this, but then there's off-label type use for it as well, or once it's approved, it's just available in the market?
It'd be crop specific, so there'd be specific crops that can be used in specific applications, and that. So it's a pre-plant soil treatment covering certain crops. Yes.
All right. In an earlier investor conference, Corey mentioned the possibility of having a registered product in more than one country. Kindly expand upon what that means, the country, the platform, if possible. Does that mean sales can be generated this year?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's the possibility of a lot of different things happening. I guess what I was referring to during that presentation was, would have I guessed that we'd be starting to do work in Europe or other countries, other areas around the world at this time? No, but a year or two ago, we wouldn't have been able to get a registration there. Now we're starting to see the wheels starting to move, the work starting to be done on the R&D, potentially on the regulatory down the road here with a reputable group, being Bayer or Sumitomo Corporation in their specific regions. So I'm confident, and there is the possibility of getting registrations in other jurisdictions now. We have that capability now with our partners.
Right. Regarding this, how soon could we expect a commercial agreement between MustGrow and Sumitomo or Bayer going forward? How far out is that potentially?
Yeah, and Martin, we can't speculate and give terms and really look at that, but I can say we are moving forward through that with the testing. And if you look at the big organizations and what they want to see, they want to be able to touch the product, feel it, move it, and understand it on their own, and be able to work with it. And I would think us having success with Sumitomo in their own field trials and crop groupings that we were not testing is very positive. But to say when, I don't know. It's something we are working towards, but nothing that we can comment on a timing.
All right. Between Bayer and Sumitomo, you've got the globe covered, but they don't have every specific application in that. Are you talking with other third parties to maybe fill in some of those gaps and work on other opportunities that aren't covered by your existing partners?
Yes, we continue to talk to other organizations, and I'm going to go back, and if you really look and you dive deep into the global agricultural organizations as well as post-harvest organizations, every one of them is trying to be more sustainable, looking for technologies that have a more sustainable fit and can be used differently, and in a lot of cases are less harmful. So we continue to have those discussions, and we will look for different opportunities and pick the right partners in the areas that we believe are going to help expand as rapidly as we can. And that is right. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we have excluded certain areas. And it's not because those organizations, Bayer and Sumitomo Corporation, did not want access. It's just we wanted to be able to continue to drive different partnerships and really expand our knowledge quicker than and have them focus in those other key areas. So we continue to talk to others.
Well, and it puts MustGrow in a much stronger situation if there are 3 or 4 or 5 other people you're working and negotiating with, that you can sort of, it's more of a liquid market. You can see the terms one group is talking about versus another one, and gives you much better information on the market, I would think.
And that's correct, Martin. And that's also a big reason why we never disclose anything to do with contracts, any specifics, because if we are negotiating with another party, not having a baseline agreement that they can look at is extremely important. So hence why when people ask about information on the current contracts we have, we do not disclose anything, because it'll take away a lot of our negotiation power with others. So it is definite. Having more at the table is better. Even having one large party is extremely positive when you think of the size of these organizations and their scope and skill. But I keep saying this, we're a small organization from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan with a great technology. And we have the big people in the room. We have big players working with us, excited about what we have and trying to help us move it forward. So it's extremely exciting.
Yeah. Okay. So that sort of knocked off a couple questions here. Someone's asking about the terms of these agreements. Is there any, and obviously you can't, but are like time frame wise, are they agreements for 1 year or 2, or is there a time frame on it, or is it? Can you comment on any aspect like that?
I can comment that there are time frames on this. So we are secured as MustGrow based on time. These organizations will not have just a carte blanche of timing to go and look at our technology without certain aspects and teeth. There are timing, but I can't give specifics around it. But if you look at it, and if you look at the agricultural companies and the agricultural market, these organizations in most cases have one treatment, one trial per year is what they can get based on the different areas they are in. If you're in Canada, you have one trial per year because of the seasons. Same thing with Northern Europe. South America, you go down in Argentina, it's the same thing. So depending on the seasons, depending on the country, these organizations may get 1 and sometimes potentially 2 field trials in. So you can speculate on the timing, but we do have teeth in there. They don't have a carte blanche, and there are some key things that make them make decisions on certain time points.
Okay, so they can't drag their feet, so to speak.
No.
All right. What success has Sumitomo had with getting permits and licenses? I guess you only get that until you get it, or is there any sort of milestones where you're getting a sense of?
No, and you know what? It's true that you only get it when you get it, but to get into a lot of the countries, there's specific EUPs, so experimental permits that you have to apply for, which are the first starting point to get into their registration queues and start that process. So Sumitomo's been successful, and like we mentioned already and talked about, they're starting work in Mexico. We're moving on and hopefully starting soon in Chile, Peru, looking at other parts. So they do have to, and these organizations have to go through those permit processes with the governments and the local registration companies to get and move those forward. So they have been successful. I will say, if you look at the world and you look at the agricultural communities, things are more favorable for biologicals to get them into and get them into the queue. You still have to go through all the science. You still have to do the field trials and validate the technology. But they have been in my mind, I've been very happy with them and getting into some of these other areas, which, to be honest, as MustGrow would have been outside of our 3-year plan. So for us, it's a very exciting process.
Great. Is there anything in your current agreement that if you sell the company, if someone makes, let's say, a bid for MustGrow, are these agreements like a poison pill, or are there compensation that your partners would get, or anything you can comment on that in terms of change of control?
Yeah, and so just on that, all the data through these research agreements is still owned by MustGrow at the end of the day. If somebody was come to buy us, whether it be one of these 2 organizations or somebody else, these agreements would still stay in force, depending, as long as the terms were met. And those organizations could then potentially work with either Bayer, Sumitomo, or both. So there's a lot of opportunity, and we have structured them in a good way that it doesn't limit us to look at different opportunities or different things. But at the end of the day, they are structured in a way that secures MustGrow's technology, it secures our data, it secures the work. And in those cases, we do not have to compensate based on those agreements. And that's one thing we can share. We don't compensate, and there is nothing in the agreements that would have to be paid back to those organizations for the work they have done.
Those agreements or contracts are still in place regardless of who owns the company, and you have to abide by those contracts.
Yep, as long as the agreements are in good standings, then those contracts would filter over and move to whoever the potential owner could be.
All right. Bayer did not secure access to TR4 bananas in Eurasia. Assume that was deliberate. Is that platform and geography being reserved potentially for another prospective partner?
No, and that comment or that question is incorrect. Bayer has secured access on pre-plant biofumigation on every crop, which includes bananas. The only thing they did not secure on bananas was the post-harvest, and that is something that Sumitomo did in the Americas. And if you look to why Sumitomo looked at the bananas and is looking at the post-harvest, it is because of their big banana company called Fifes as well, and looking at the different synergies. With Bayer, they wanted to focus more on the pre-plant soil, the bioherbicide, and then potatoes for post-harvest. So there are work, they do have access to TR4 in bananas in Europe, Asia, Africa, Middle East.
Right, and now we're gonna switch over the questions to on the production, the actual product side of it. Are the production costs for MustGrow's applications competitive compared to synthetic or existing chemical products?
Yeah, as we said in our presentation, we have our technology for AITC specifically as a pre-plant soil treatment. Based on our application rates that we're seeing effective in the field, there is good potential that our technology can be competitive based on current synthetic chemical pricing, specifically in the North American market.
And that's something you've worked on much over the prior years, when before it was, it was a granular, and now your shipping costs were big issues, and you've already done the reformulation to a highly concentrated liquid, which is easier to handle and transport. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the granular product, there was sales. It is a registered product as a biopesticide. There was sales, about $700,000 of sales. But the product wasn't economic. They weren't being able to sell it at a high enough price compared to their costs, specifically around the transportation, where it was a high cost. A very bulky product. Farmers would have to put 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of that product down per acre. And it wasn't in a form that the applicators wanted to use. They wanted to see something in a liquid form. Now with this new extract, which we formulated into a liquid formula that can be applied either through drip line or injection or irrigation, we're seeing application rates, say 5 to 20 gallons per acre, and seeing good efficacy at those application rates. It's a lot less product that has to be applied. It's more efficient product, and we think at these application rates, based on our cost modeling, there's good potential for us to be economic compared to synthetic chemical pricing.
Great question here on revenues. When are significant revenues expected? Any guidance on that potentially?
Well, I mean, it all comes down to when we get a registered product. So once we have a registered product, we'll have a product that's ready to sell. And now, hopefully, within this time period, we're able to define how we'll produce the product. We'll be able to produce right away and able to market and distribute it right away into the market. It will take, for significant revenues, it is going to take time to obtain market penetration, and we estimate 3 to 5 years to get full market penetration in some of these markets. Colin often mentions that as a farmer, he's not going to apply to all his acres right away. It'll take a time for him to test the product initially and then expand it throughout the years, making sure that he's seeing the efficacy that he needs to see, and he's not harming his acres or his production.
And that very much has to do with the growing season as well. You maybe, as a farmer, you like 1/10 of your land, okay, we'll try it here, and then compare it to sort of in their own little scientific experiment, see how it goes. Oh, that seemed to go well, then expand it bigger and bigger over the following years. So it takes a few years for that acceptance to ramp up.
Yep. And and Martin, just on that, farmers are like chemical companies. They believe your technology and your data with a grain of salt, but they want to try it on their own and see it. And that's exactly the same thing. We're working with the big chemical companies right now, proving our technology, showing them it works. We have to do the same with farmers, and not There's not many farmers out there that will do 100% of their acres in year one. They want to try it, see it, make sure they can work their kinks out, and then expand rapidly over the next 2 to 3 years once they do see the benefits in the field. So it's a very similar type of process.
Gotcha. We've sort of already addressed some of this, but could you, any expectations on what margins could be like? And you talked about toll manufacturing. Someone's asking about CapEx costs. I guess that if there's toll manufacturing, you don't have a lot of CapEx. Can you talk about that in general?
Yeah, so in terms of margins, we don't share that information. It's confidential information that we keep internal for competitive reasons. In terms of CapEx for investment for I guess for production, yeah, I mean there's lots of different ways or things that we're going to be assessing. Toll manufacturing, there's toll manufacturers in the market right now that have the capabilities to produce product for us. We're going to continue to assess that, not just hopefully they'll have a few different options that we can potentially obtain initial production through toll manufacturing. In addition, we are working on the engineering numbers, the capital cost numbers for developing a plant. So there will be some options there for us, and down the road we're going to have to look at the cost benefit of both. And I think to me initially, toll manufacturing without a lot of capital costs up front to obtain initial revenue and sales would be significant for this company.
Makes sense. In the event of the approval for bananas, fully market supply, sorry, I'm reading this as we go and I don't quite understand the question.
Yeah, I'm looking at this one, Martin. I think what it's asking is, if we get the approval for bananas, will we be able to supply the market? And this is one very similar, whether you're a canola grower, a wheat grower, a soybean grower, a banana grower, even with the challenges they have, they are not going to utilize this a technology on all their acres right at once. So I do think we would definitely be able to supply the market supply and the test market, get it moving, continue to build that confidence around our technology. And I can almost be certain, this is one thing I can be certain on, I don't believe we would get a registration right across the globe. So it's going to be country by country, which is then going to help us be able to penetrate and be able to put supply in an effective way. So I think that's what it's asking. If not, they whoever asked that question can send us a note.
Given the vital nature of bananas in some developing countries, like you said, there are significant parts of their GDP, and the threat of this is substantial. If one country would approve it, that could put some internal pressure on them. It's like, oh, our neighbors have a good root. Our farmers really want some tools to deal with this as well. There could be a bit of a domino effect, and seeing, hey, it works there, we should give it a try too.
Yeah, and that's the hope, and that's typically what you see even right around the globe. Once you get your registration in one organization, one country, it does make it easier to move that outwards and get registrations in other parts, and even moving product across border and everything else. It does help. So my assumption is yes, but is that going to happen all at once? I just these are large countries with a lot of things on the go, and we do. You have to work through. I think the key thing is, if we do get registration, there's still going to be that ramp up with farmers, and I believe we'll have that ability to supply the market with the product that they need.
All right. I think you've addressed this already, but let's to hammer it home here. If there is a need for a capital raise in the future, if so, how much? But do you guys have any plans on raising capital anytime in the near future?
No plans. As I mentioned in our presentation, with $9 million of cash on hand right now, we're in a very strong position for the next 4 to 5 years, given our current burn and that. So we're sitting in a strong position, and that doesn't include the money that our partners are putting in the ground right now for us. So.
Should we be expecting your burn rate to stay at roughly kind of the same levels, because your partners are spending a lot of money helping on the development, or are there any, let's say, once registration happens in maybe a country where you'll have to raise up the burn at some point, or is this a good steady state we're at?
Well, I mean, given what we know right now, I don't see any reason for it to change. But that being said, I mean, like we had successful results in potato trials there for sprout control. Things change as we go forward here. If we have success in, say, mycotoxins for stored grain, well, we might want to fast track some of that development. And so I'd never say never, and that things evolve all the time.
Great. Yeah. There's obviously a lot of not sure what the next year or two exactly is going to look like. Now people are wanting to know what year you think things are going to look like in 5 or 10 years. Strategic plan, where to be in 5 or 10 years. Are you more interested in third-party production pipeline and then in producing yourself? I guess you've said depends. You'll sort of cross that bridge when you get there. And I guess it makes sense toll producing maybe in the nearer term, and then when it makes sense, you could do your own facility.
Exactly. So we wanted to find, like we said in the presentation here, we wanted to find the path to commercialization. This product pipeline, and we want to move this all the way to launch and have registrations in numerous countries around the world. So will it all happen? Probably not. But we think there's a good opportunity here for a lot of this to happen and continue to push this forward. And when we do have a registered product, we want to right now, this year and the next year or so, we want to, how are we going to get it? How are we going to produce product? Toll manufacturing or produce it ourselves with our own plant? And what are the costs of that's going to be? What's the cost benefit of that going to be? And then how are we going to get the product into the market? In terms of marketing, in terms of distribution. Maybe that's in the US, maybe that's in other countries around the world. We want to have that defined, or the path to commercialization to be able to be defined. That's what we do every day. That being said, we're shareholders of this company. And if there's somebody that wants to own this technology and drive it forward, and pay our shareholders the future value today, I mean, we'll definitely have to take that to our shareholders to be voted on. We're looking to create value for our shareholders, and we think by defining that path to commercialization right now, stuff that we can control, is good value.
It's obviously always really difficult to discuss like how much or who's going to buy you or if or when and so forth. And you want to create maximum value for shareholders and yourself in this. Do you see there being like the real catalyst for drive inflection points for driving value? I guess getting EPA registration would be a huge de-risking event that would probably put you on a lot of more radar screens. Are there any other, am I right on that assumption? And are the other sort of big catalyst events that kind of make it, put you up in air ball where now you're really a target for people where you could really be on the radar?
Yeah, well, I think EPA registration would be huge for our company. It increases the probability of revenues even more. So it's a very important step, and it's something that we're heavily focused on. But that being said, being a growth company, I think there's other things that we're working on too, other than just registrations that are going to drive the value of this company. Again, that's moving this pipeline forward to commercialization, forward to registration, not only in the US on, say, a pre-plant soil biofumigate, but also on the post-harvest side in other areas around the world. We want this technology to be used in as many different applications as possible globally. And I kind of look at it like we've got a great technology that can have different applications. There's a lot of different pies, and these pies are getting bigger and bigger all the time. And by us bringing in these partners, we've increased the probability of success even more globally. And by us going and getting EPA registration increases the probability of success even more. So it's all very important to us.
Yeah, and Martin, I just want to clarify too. Getting the registration isn't something that a lot of the big organizations are worried about for us. In a lot of cases, they would like to be able to work with us and really drive to see how it fits within their portfolio. So when you're thinking about a potential M&A or larger partnership, that is not the be all end all. It's important, but yes, we're working towards it. Yes, we're going to continue to focus on it, but it isn't the only thing that's going to drive a lot of value. And looking at how you could take this technology and incorporate it into a a 40 or a $50 billion portfolio is another key thing that some of these other organizations will look at. So you just have to be careful. Registrations aren't the be all end all. They're important, but when big organizations look at their strategies and what they need, they're looking at a lot of different ways of this as well. And being sustainable, being natural, being efficacious are the things that we really want to focus on, and they want to focus on and understand.
My assumption is when you guys going forward, you guys are an agricultural biotech company. So looking at it like a biotech company is kind of interesting, where there are a lot of biotechs that are cute multi-billion-dollar companies and very successful, and they out-license and let some of the big pharma companies commercialize their products. They do the R&D and then put it out. That I couldn't imagine you guys, your ambition is to build out this giant sales organization globally with thousands of salespeople and go kind of head to head against Bayer and that. They've built out that. The one potential path forward, if you don't get taken out, would be sort of an incubator, a biotech development company where you get new molecules, develop it, trial it, partner it, and move forward. Would that be, am I on the right track in sort of a longer term vision if you guys stay independent? That's roughly what it would kind of look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're a small team here in Saskatchewan, and we own the technology. We have the expertise around the molecule and the technology itself. And that's key for us. We understand what we do well, and we understand what others do well, and the capabilities that we've brought in-house with partnering with Sumitomo Corporation and Bayer and Nexus, that's expanded our team and allowed us to do other things elsewhere. Are we looking at other things potentially to enhance our technology or maybe be accretive to our technology? Is sustainable? Yeah, we're always looking at stuff. And but that being said, we understand we're focusing in on the compounds within the mustard seed, and we believe in those compounds, and there's a reason why we believe in them, because they're effective. We just don't want to be another company that is a Me Too company, and that kind of focusing in on other microbials or something like that, like Colin will mention here, that others are doing. So we want to be unique and be able to bring something to the market that's effective and going to be in demand.
And as well, when are you looking at doing an uplisting of sorts? Is there any plan or strategy around that?
Yeah, I mean, we continue to assess it. We've looked at, in the Canada and the US, we continue to assess it. I will say, the CSE has served us very well. If we do an uplisting, we want to make sure that we check all the boxes, and obviously the exchange won't let us do an uplisting if we don't. Not only do we want to check all the boxes, but we want to make sure that those boxes can be maintained as checked, and we don't want to have to go backwards and be delisted because we didn't maintain. It's a little tough for a company that's not generating revenue and is a technology company in that. So we understand the benefit of uplisting and that, but it also has to be in terms of the risk of being delisted down the road, and that we want to make sure that we do it properly.
All right, we are going to now move on to a Q&A here on the chat line from Zoom. So thanks everyone who emailed actually I've got a few more for later, for email your questions. Not really a question here, Corey, but congrats on the beard. You're getting some congratulations on a good looking beard there. What does it mean that the product is safe, and how does it affect soil life?
Yeah, and this is something AITC, there's data around it. Our technology is not very water soluble, so it's not going to go and run off into water, into streams, lakes, and rivers. And it also has a very short half-life, which means it doesn't persist long in a soil. Being a natural product, it doesn't persist long. Some chemistries can persist anywhere from 2 to 9 months in the soil. Those chemistries will degrade and disrupt the soil microbiome dramatically. The data that we've seen and that, through Dr. Morrow, who's part of our team and advisors, it shows that there is a negative drag on the soil microbiome in the first few hours, but then it builds up, and actually the beneficial organisms after the application of our technology and AITC, it improves. So hence why we do have the claims around soil health. So we do not impact the soil like chemistry, and it does actually have a positive impact on the natural soil microbiome and the beneficial organisms that are in the soil. So that's why we know it's safe. And there's data to prove that, and it's on the public domain. So you can research this, and whoever asked that question, there is a lot of data around AITC and soil benefits.
For people who don't know, could you just very briefly, what is the soil microbiome? We hear that about our stomach microbiome. Just very briefly on what the microbiome is.
It is, and if you think of it, I think the number, going back to my days at Novozymes, is 1 gram of soil will have over 50 million different microbes. So these microbes are like our soil microbiome and our gut and our flora and our body. They're there to help the plant break down fertilizers or break down carbon. If you think of CO2 reduction, plants and soil are one of the key aspects. Why are we seeing potentially some of the things around global warming and maybe climate change is maybe around unhealthy soils and over chemical use in some regions. So it's really about the things and organisms, the living organisms in the soil that will help a plant be healthy, help the roots break down different bacteria and different things to help it grow. It'll help fight off pests, fight off disease. Essentially, it's the lifeblood. It's like the blood of us. It's the microbiome is the blood of the soil, essentially.
We do not want sterile soil where there's nothing alive in it except whatever the roots of the plant. That's a bad thing. No,
that is a bad thing. And I will say, if you want to see some of that, look to India, where there's been overuse of fertilization and chemistries. They need to start rebuilding up their soil. If you look into parts of China where overuse, you start looking into the US, essentially, even Brazil. There's a lot of opportunity, and as a farmer, and I get on this, I'm sorry, I say I get on my soapbox here with soil health, but as a farmer, soil is my biggest asset. It's a key thing that's going to help grow and feed the planet. We have to keep our soil healthy. So starting to switch to products like ours, to potentially other microbial products to help enhance other products and plants is extremely important. And the knowledge has really expanded over the years, but we're really excited about our product having a positive impact and not a negative, because that would be an issue.
All right. If Sumitomo and Bayer are the elephant and MustGrow is an ant, how do you avoid being run over or stepped on? Can those two big companies take all your info and results and eliminate MustGrow down the road?
No, and as I mentioned in the presentation, we do have very good teeth in our contracts that we have with them. And this is the importance, I would believe, of getting more and more people to the table. The more people you have at the table, more people excited about it, the more fear of losing out starts getting put into the larger organizations. And it's something that we do have very good controls, our patent portfolio, what we've done on these agreements, we are very secure on our side.
Yeah, that's the rule of law, good lawyers, contracts, that controls all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing the webinar. Can the concentration of AITC be grown biologically such as not having to grow directly, then extract existing agriculture? Can you grow the mustard seed maybe with a higher concentration of it? I'm guessing they mean?
Yeah, and so I do know ginkgo, and I know what they've done, and I know different extraction processes and fermentation processes with living organisms. So I do know what the question is coming around. AITC is the combination, it's the hydrolysis that happens when a glucosinolate is mixed with the enzyme. That enzyme to be grown in fermentation or outside of the natural process is very difficult. And actually the mustard seed does an extremely important part and grows it well. AITC is not the only thing though that is the benefit. And when we look at our technology, there is a synthetic AITC on the market that is going on at extremely high rates compared to our very low rate product. There are other things that are happening that come with the natural mustard seed that add benefits. And this is where when we look at our portfolio and really driving things forward, we know that mustard has a tremendous opportunity and ability to bring other things in that have impact. So it's not just AITC. So, if Bayer wanted to go get AITC, they could go start looking and talk to Gowan, who just bought OTCQB, who was producing a synthetic version of AITC, but they don't want that. They want to look at our technology, which is going on a pounds per acre between 0.8 to 5, compared to that synthetic product that's going on at 350. So it's a lot of difference. So it's not just AITC, it is the overall technology that we have, how we deliver it to the marketplace, the timing it takes to do the hydrolysis in the soil, and really the application. So that's where a lot of the magic happens.
All right. Was the control of stored potatoes at a financial interesting rate? I guess, does it look like it could have good economics, the potato post-crop application?
Yeah, compared to CIPC that's being used in the North American market, yes. The one area that we do have a big opportunity is if you look at the European market, CIPC has already been banned, and that's the big majority. That's roughly about a $60 million marketplace that has just been taken. Essentially, they don't have anything or any CIPC that they can be used. So the answer is yes, we believe so.
Okay, the next question is on your pricing in terms of the strategy. They're asking, will you do a cost plus? And I'm thinking that it'll be much more looking at the market, what are economical rates, what are competitive type products priced at, and sort of price it for the maximum value. Anyways, if you could elaborate on what you'll all take into account when figuring out your pricing.
Yeah, and you mentioned it there. All of that is taken into account, looking at how high the penetration, what we want to do, and moving forward. When you think of the price points used to date, and if I look specifically at the US, we believe we could be competitive. We believe that we can come in and even do a very similar type of cost base to synthetic chemistries on current pricing, and try take over a lot more bigger chunk of the market. But looking at the market, there's a lot of things we have to look at, or organic acres, buffer zones that have no application to date, looking at the chemicals that are being used. You go into certain counties or certain states, they're limited on how much chemical pounds per AI per acre that they're able to use cumulatively over a year. There's a lot of things we could look at, but when I look at this, it's a financial opportunity for us, but it's also a social opportunity. And I think we have a tremendous opportunity to replace some of these chemistries that are having a very negative impact. So we're going to take all that into consideration and drive as much value looking at it, but we also want to make sure that we get a high enough penetration to make a difference.
I'm thinking that different crops, farmers for different crops could afford different prices if you got a higher margin crop versus a lower margin crop, or how much crop per acre there is and so forth. Are you able to price, or are chemical companies able to price, oh, we'll charge canola this much per gallon and lentils this much per gallon? Or basically you have to kind of figure out an equilibrium for the whole market and say, this is the price per gallon, and it's better for some industries and maybe not so good for other crops?
You know what I'm going to say, Martin, it depends. And yes, there are ways to do that. And I'll give you an example. As a farmer, I pay, roughly, let's say about $5 a liter for glyphosate. If you go to a home and garden that was selling it before it was taken off the shelves, you'd probably be paying about 10,000 liters for glyphosate, or $10,000 a liter. Based on the concentration and the application. So there are ways to do it, but when I look at this, it's still, and we're looking at the crop groupings, strawberries is very high value, leafy greens, cucurbits, but they're smaller acreage crops. So let's look at penetrating potatoes, and we have to take all that in consideration before we make decisions on that. But there are ways to do it. It does get complicated, and you have to look at different formulations. But for right now, I think we're looking at all those different matrix and understanding the market better.
Right. Another question here on the Sumitomo and Bayer and commercialization. And anything else you can comment on potential commercialization that we haven't hit upon so far?
No, these organizations continue to work with our technology. They're excited. They're moving to other countries. They're investing a lot. That is a goal that we move towards.
Question here on California. I believe California has its own registration requirements. Once you get EPA approval, you got to apply for a separate California approval. And they're asking about California. Am I right on that? And could you elaborate?
You are correct. So California is run a little bit differently, and actually each state. So first you need to get your EPA registration, and then you apply, state by state. Most other states are quite easy. California does take a little bit more time. There's a few other things that have to be done, but that has to be done after, in combination, some things with what's happening with EPA.
For 2022, can we see any licensed products anywhere in the world, potentially?
Potentially.
All right. Could you make a comment on which country or which countries would be the more likely ones to be the first through the gate?
Well, I'll say, like, we've done vast majority of the work with the EPA in the US.
Yeah.
So that would most likely be the one, but maybe Colin wants to talk about potential for fast track registrations and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's where, we are continuing to do the work, looking at those specifically, the 3 key diseases that I talked about that don't have any chemical controls. Looking through and working through what Sumitomo's doing and in other parts to see, can we potentially move it forward fast? That's still a possibility. Looking and working through grower groups for canola and pulse crops, same thing in bananas, and trying to get that as well. But if you look at it elsewhere, there's a lot of countries, I'll pick on, if you look into what's happening in Mexico and a lot of deregulation around certain chemistries and a lot of stuff that those growers have, Mexico is being very favorable when it comes to biologicals and different biopesticides. So looking at different opportunities, and this is where having Sumitomo Corporation and their expertise guiding us and being part of the overall build on where we go and how do we go, and it has been very helpful. So, there's lots of potential ways, but, those are still things that, like Corey mentioned, are out of our control. We're going to work towards them, but we have to keep in mind what's in our control and focus on those and execute on those.
All right. Mustard seed prices have risen dramatically in the past year. How does that translate in? How much does that impact your cost of potential cost of goods when you get into production?
Oh, it definitely is going to increase our cost to get into production. But I will say that mustard is a commodity, just like other products that farmers grow. The higher the price of mustard, it just means that farmers are going to grow more of it next year, and it'll all even out down the road. And we think you might have higher costs one year, lower costs the next year, and that canola prices are gone through the roof, and it just means that all the farmers are going to grow canola, and there's going to be more and more production in the market to decrease prices in that. So,
and it's not like farmers are not used to commodity prices and things changing on a year-to-year basis. I'm curious, yours is an organic product. Do you have to use organic mustard seed in your product to maintain your organic, or when you get organic certification?
Yeah, no, we don't. You don't have to use organic mustard, but the product is organically certified. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I will also say too, I should mention too on product prices, in that mustard is a robust crop and it can be grown around the world. The vast majority is grown in southern Saskatchewan and Alberta. If prices continue to rise with mustard, it just means that it's going to be grown in other jurisdictions as well, and that because of the economics.
Are you able to tell, like, how 1 acre of mustard plant, how many gallons, or is there any kind of a metric you could give us of how many acres per gallon to produce your products?
The way I look at it is 1 acre of mustard usually will generate, say, 30 bushels an acre of seed. And I can't remember, but I believe it was like 5,000 to 8,000 acres of mustard at 30 bushels an acre would be enough to feed our plant initially. And I can't remember the capacity of that. Would have been maybe a million to 2 million liters.
Okay.
Was that right?
Yep. Oh, sorry. Yes, I was nodding my head.
Okay. And that many acres of mustard, is that a big portion of the world's mustard crop, or is that that's pretty minuscule?
It's minuscule. And then, as Corey mentioned, when we look at this and working with big partners, a big part of our supply is coming out of Saskatchewan and southern Alberta. But if you start thinking expanding into Europe, into Asia, South America, mustard is very robust. It could be grown in many different regions, and you start looking at potentially in-country production, in-country use. It will reduce and help on the costing as well. So it's a robust crop, and I'm not worried about the raw material. It's if we need to, I can turn my farm into a mustard growing farm, and we'll be good for MustGrow for many years.
All right, and on the uplisting plans, it wasn't mentioned before, but someone asked about NASDAQ. Is that any thoughts on NASDAQ or anything more to add?
Well, we're assessing all the exchanges here in North America. Yeah.
All right. Can you think of any reason why the EPA wouldn't give you registration?
No, I mean, we have an existing registration for our granular product, same active ingredient. And to us, it's not if, it's when we'll receive the registration.
Right. We addressed this before, but maybe a little more depth to it. Do you also look at products from other plants, or do you fully focus on extracts from the mustard seed?
Yeah, and mustard, when you look at AITC and what we're producing, has the highest rate of the glucosinolates, the key components that we need. There are other plants that produce it, but it's not key. There are other extracts out there that have different kinds of controls. If you look at tea tree, you look at citrus oil, you look at some other things. But for right now, the key focus is this mustard extract. It is very efficacious and has a very big impact. But as Corey mentioned before, we continue to look for ways to enhance the portfolio and the pipeline, and we always look at opportunities.
All right. Turf and ornamentals are excluded from the existing agreements. What is the plan for those markets?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we're excited about those markets. We just want to make sure that when we do partner with a group in this area with know-how, we want to make sure that it gets brought forward into the market, commercialized, developed, and it's not just going to sit on the shelf and that. So we're excited about turf and ornamentals. We had good success. We announced, I believe, about a year and a half ago in ornamentals in Colombia on, I believe, carnations, going against steam. We're excited about that market, and on the turf side, the granular product actually had really good results in turf. That could be some place that we look at doing some testing on the new version of the technology, the extract, here in the near future. But we are very excited about turf and ornamentals. Right.
Nutrien, I believe the company, could that be a part of your marketing team or product distribution channel?
It's a potential. Nutrien is a very big organization with a lot of capabilities as well. And we discuss with multiple different companies looking at ways to put the product into the market.
And a company like Bayer, they would sell their existing products through a company like Nutrien, wouldn't they?
Yeah, it depends on the country, Martin, but in the US or Canada, typically Bayer will go directly to a Nutrien, a CPS, a Helena, a Winfield. So they will look at the main distribution companies, but it also depends market by market on how it's distributed. Some companies will go direct to farm, others will use distribution channels. So it differs.
Right. I work in organic farming. How large a market share do you think organic farming will hold for your technology? Something like this can be a deal breaker for organic farms. Organic farmers could also pay more. Any comments regarding all that?
We're excited about organic. It's a fast-growing industry. There's about, based on our numbers, there's about 250,000 acres of tree, nut, and vine, fruit and veggie, potato acres of organic acres in the U.S. And they don't have any solutions for some of these diseases or pests. Our technology has a great fit for organic farms, and we're excited to get getting this product into that organic market.
All right. It is great that the product is not very water soluble, so will not migrate quickly to water bodies. But having said that, the product will at some point reach water bodies at some high potency, I'm not sure. What studies have been completed and shared on the effects of the product on water, plants, and fauna?
So yeah, first, it is water soluble, but the way it's applied, it is injected into the soil. So that should limit runoff or any of the issues into those other bodies based on the application methods. Now, the studies, I can't answer this. This is something that we can go back with Dr. Mora and see what has been done. But we do know the way our product's applied without it being water soluble and will not move on a liquid phase throughout the soil very quickly, and it moves into a gaseous phase within the soil, it should be fine. But it all depends, and it's based on the application way and timing. And the best way to get our product into the ground is through the injection systems and worked into the soil to be most effective.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too, is that it's got a very short half-life, 24 hours to 72 hours, I believe. So the active is dissipated and done its work, and it doesn't persist in the soil for very long.
When you say half-life, what do you mean? Like, we know what radioactive half-life, does it evaporate, or does it just break down into some sort of, the molecules break down into its components? What happens in that half-life?
Yeah, it essentially breaks down and is removed in part of the soil structure then. And I'm not 100% scientist here, Martin, but I think it goes more into different carbon, different proteins, and different things that can be utilized by the plant. But I'd have to go back and see, but it essentially just breaks down.
But it doesn't linger,
break down very quickly.
There's not going to be huge residues of it in 10 years because it's just not going to exist anymore in that form.
No, and that's why if you look at some of the key chemistries that are used to date, their half-life is very long. So if you see things happening, and that's why they have some negative aspects of the soil microbiome, with having a short half-life, it breaks down quickly. And essentially, we're keeping this as natural as we possibly can to the natural mustard seed. A lot of this like tilling mustard seed or mustard plant material into the soil, but in a more effective way and in a more rapid way. So, it does break down, but to see exactly what it turns into, whether carbon, ash, different proteins, I don't know the exact breakdown.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is you eat it. You probably have more AITC in your kitchen than what we're applying on a per acre basis.
Right. Where is the banana emergency at in Colombia? For an emergency, it does not appear to be that anything is happening too rapid in nature. Yeah, maybe just talk about, like, there's concern, there's one genetic variety of bananas basically throughout the world. Like, what do they do right now? How widespread is it? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, well, when you look at what's happening in South America, Colombia still has a state of emergency, and that's where the banana emergencies come from. This is now moved, and from everything we've seen, into Guatemala, into Ecuador. If you look what's happened in the Philippines, it's decimated the Philippines as well. So yes, there still is an emergency, but even with an emergency, you still have to work through government protocols and get stuff done. And to even get field trials done, these trials are done in a lot of areas that are under quarantine. And the only way in and out is with government permits. So it is, even though it is emergency, it does take long, and you have to go through that process and try essentially get what you need to move forward. So we're, I would say, moving at the fastest pace that we can. And we're doing what we can to move this forward. And now Sumitomo is getting excited. Their teams are starting to learn about it, understanding. And like I said in the presentation, looking at continuing testing in Colombia, now moving more testing also into Ecuador, Costa Rica, and also looking at other pests as well in bananas. So it's not slowing down, but it does take time.
When you say quarantine, you're not talking COVID quarantine. You're talking about people walking in and they're afraid of it coming out on their boots and infesting other areas with the soil stuff.
That's exactly it. So when it's quarantine, it's quarantine. No one is allowed in and out without approval. When you come out, you are essentially getting sanitized and sprayed. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's hydrogen chloride that they're utilizing to sanitize coming out of these fields. So it is quarantine. No one is allowed in, no one is allowed out unless it is approved by the government.
Are you able to give any sort of order of magnitude of the size of investment that Sumitomo and Bayer have made so far in sort of investigating and working with you?
No, this is something that's part of the confidential agreements that I've talked about. But for us, it is significant, and it's we're very happy with their commitment to developing our technologies.
Do you think your technology could help farms transition from a conventional farm to an organic farm?
It's a potential, and if you look at this, we do know there's a lot of farmers who have both organic and conventional acres, and the reason they do conventional acres is, one, in most cases, production will be higher. Number two, it is easier to manage those acres, and it's less labor intensive. They have more solutions. Potentially, by providing solutions to these growers, you could see a switch from those conventional into organic. But you know, I would say the goal first is to provide a good solution for all growers to be able to utilize, to be able to help to grow a better food, you know, keep the food production stable, and then see if that's part of what comes of this, then great. You know, it'd be good to see, but I think we have to show the efficacy. We have to make sure that they see the value in field before any of that will happen.
And there are a lot more things that have to change than just that one for a farm to go organic. The fertilizers, and I have no idea what else it would be, but it's not just one thing they're doing that they need to change.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Martin. When you look at our technology, we are part of the toolkit that farmers have. We're one part in the toolkit, a very important part, but we're one part of it. We're not going to control and do everything across the entire grower season. There's other things that have to be used. So think of it as an IP. It's a tool in the IPM strategy. So the integrated pest management strategy of a farmer. We are one solution at the forefront. You know, hopefully a potentially solution at the forefront and the pre-plant, starting with a clean soil, helping it, but then moving to the post-harvest and finishing with a good, you know, disease, insect, or other control. So, you know, it's something that we're just one piece. There's many different pieces of the puzzle that a farmer has to look at and utilize.
We are out of questions here, and we're, I think, pretty much kind of out of time. We're almost an hour and a half into this. So I think that's great. Fantastic questions, everyone out there. Thank you for being so involved and asking great questions. I guess just one I'd like to always wrap up with, what kind of news flow could investors be kind of looking out for over the next 9 months? Obviously, everyone's bated breath on some EPA registration, but what are there other types of news you're working on, that maybe some new studies that get released, anything else to sort of keep our eyes open for?
Yeah, I think, yeah, for sure on the EPA front, you know, we've got partners doing work around the world on a variety of these different applications in our technology pipeline. So we're going to be providing updates on that. You know, we've sent a lot of product out here in the last little while. It's lots of product, and it's there's a lot of different things happening. So we look forward to keeping the market abreast of what's happening in our results, and continuing to drive our technology forward through commercialization.
Excellent. Corey, Colin, thank you very much for taking the time to talking with everyone here. Greatly appreciated, and have a great day, and looking forward to having another conversation in a few months as things progress. Have a great day, and talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Martin.